To fully answer this question, we need to separate the question's two implied conditions. Is premarital sex a sin if marriage is not expected, assuming the relationship will probably be temporary? And is premarital sex a sin if marriage is expected, assuming the relationship will be permanent? Regardless of what your scenario is, we recommend you read both scenarios. We need to understand both scenarios to fully understand either scenario. We will begin with the most common scenario. Is premarital sex a sin if marriage is not expected? The foundation of every law is personal protection and protection of others. These laws, a violation of which we call sin, are the laws that will govern heaven. Violating these laws will result in a life less pleasing than one would experience in heaven. The laws that govern sex serve the same function. That is, they protect us from unwanted pregnancies, sexually transmitted diseases, and the potential emotional trauma. Whether or not sex outside marriage is a sin, it is difficult for one to argue sex outside marriage is not associated with countless difficulties. The English word for sex before marriage is fornication. Considering this, many point out that several Bible translations never use the word fornication. The reason for this is simply there is no Greek or Hebrew word that specifically and only means sex before marriage. The difficulty in translating fornication. The Bible, written in Hebrew and Greek, uses a few words when referring to sexual immorality. The Old Testament, Hebrew. Neaf, best translates to adultery. You shall not commit adultery, or neaf. Exodus 20:14. Zanut, best translates to prostitute or fornicator. Do not degrade your daughters by making her a prostitute, or zanut, or the land will turn to prostitution and be filled with wickedness. Leviticus 19:29. Zana, best translates to be sexually immoral through fornication, whoredom, or to be a harlot. While Israel was staying in the Shittim, the men began to indulge in sexual immorality, zana, with Moabite women. Numbers 25:1. The New Testament, Greek. Moicheia, equivalent to neaf, best translates to adultery. The teachers of the law and the Pharisees brought a woman caught in adultery, or moicheia. They made her stand before the group. John 8:3. Porneia, equivalent to zanut, best translates to commits illicit sex, such as a prostitute or a fornicator. I am afraid that when I come again, my God will humble me before you, and I will be grieved over many who have sinned earlier and have not repented of the impurity, sexual sin, or porneia, and debauchery, in which they have indulged. 2 Corinthians 12:21. Porneo, equivalent to zana, best translates to fornication, whoredom, or to be a harlot, often translated to sexual immorality. Flee from sexual immorality, or porneo. All other sins man commits outside his body, but he who sins sexually sins against his own body. 1 Corinthians 6:18. While none of these passages, when read in their original language, specifically identify sex between two consenting unmarried adults as sinful, all of them condemn sexual immorality as a broad category. This is to be expected, as neither Greek nor Hebrew has a word which specifically and exclusively translates to sex between two consenting unmarried adults. The lack of a specific word for fornication makes its inclusion into the category of sexually immoral difficult to assess. However, we can review what is sexually immoral. By revealing what defines sexually immoral, we can determine whether or not fornication fits within this category, and therefore whether or not fornication is permissible. What is sexually immoral? Contrary to popular belief, the Bible is in no way prude. In fact, the Bible is quite sexual and, at times, very graphic. While the Bible is sexually charged, it clearly reveals sex serves a specific purpose and has a specific effect. What is the purpose of sex? The Bible clearly explains sex has three purposes. Procreation. This is the obvious purpose of sex. God blessed them and said, "Be fruitful and increase in numbers, fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over all the fish of the sea and the birds of the air, and over every living creature that moves on the ground." Genesis 1:28. Enjoyment. Sex is designed to be fun and enjoyable. May your fountain be blessed, and may you rejoice in the wife of your youth. A loving doe, a graceful deer, may her breast satisfy you always. May you ever be captivated by her love. Proverbs 5:18-19. An expression of love. Sex is the physical manifestation of love. Let us go early to the vineyards to see if the vines have budded, if their blossoms have opened, and if the pomegranates are in bloom. There I will give you my love. Song of Songs 7:12. What is the effect of sex? Aside from the obvious effect of sex, producing offspring, according to the Bible, sex has another effect, unification. Sex results in two people becoming one flesh. They are united by God. In other words, they become married. For this reason, a man shall leave his father and his mother and be joined to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. Genesis 2:24. Do you not know that he who unites himself with a prostitute is one with her in body? For it is said, the two will become one flesh. 1 Corinthians 6:16. Two people have sex. They become united as one flesh before God. They become married. If they respect this unification, they respect God. If they unite themselves, have sex, with the expectation to separate the union, they disrespect the purpose of marriage, and therefore disrespect God. But if they cannot control themselves, they should marry, for it is better to marry than to burn with passion. 1 Corinthians 7:9. Is premarital sex a sin if marriage is planned? While the information above sheds a lot of light upon sex and its purpose, it does not account for those who plan on marrying. If immoral sex is defined as sex between unmarried people, and the result of sex is uniting two into one flesh, i.e. marriage, is sex still a sin if the two are engaged to be married? Technically, no. When a couple engaged to be married has sex, they are uniting themselves prematurely. They become married in the eyes of God before they celebrate this union with the marriage ceremony. However, the chances of the couple actually getting married is surprisingly small. How many times have you heard a couple sincerely state they will be together forever, only to separate shortly after? The marriage ceremony is a public declaration to the community, your family, your spouse, and God, that you will respect the consummation, unification by God as a result of sex. It is not sex that is sinful. It is the separation, the violation of the unification that the sex caused, that is sinful. And the two will become one flesh. They are no longer two, but one. Therefore, what God has joined together, let man not separate. Mark 10:8-9.